Hey, welcome to Betwixt the Shadows. What's going on?
Lots of stuff going on. We have a full moon tomorrow. I feel like we've got a ton of questions already sent in. Hopefully we'll have a ton of questions from our listeners because you guys, as we've told you over and over again, are the backbone of our show.
Yeah.
So I don't know. How are you doing, Sal?
I'm doing great. I've had a really kind of strange past couple 7 days. I don't want to really go too into it, but my wife and I got a dog, a dog we got from a Great Dane rescue, and it basically turns out that we couldn't keep him, so we had to send him back this morning, and it was kind of heartbreaking, but it just wasn't the right fit for us. So that I've been a little emotional on that today. So that was a little hard, but I'm very happy. I mean, overall, I'm still kind of high off of the inauguration, and I don't mean to be Joe politics because I'm just not that guy, but I'm just really happy right now, and I'm feeling happiness, and I'm seeing it. I'm seeing proof every day in the store. People are fucking happy right now, and it's simple. It's so great.
Yeah. I felt like when we were coming up on the inauguration, like that was New Year. Like that was 2021 was starting. I didn't feel like there was any sort of shift until then. But I mean, man, Biden's hands, I feel like they must be getting tired because he's just been signing shit like a fucking hurricane. I love it.
Yeah, he has. He must get mad hand cramps.
Yes. I'm so glad we're back in like the climate agreement and everything that
trans situations.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to hit on.
Yeah, I'm so happy about that.
All the progress that we made, we're bringing it back. Well, did you see that someone at Mar-a-Lago, where Trump is staying now, someone took, I think it was a drone with, or maybe even it was a plane, but they flew over Mar-a-Lago with like, Trump, you're the worst president we've ever had, like you're a piece of shit, and they just flew it over Mar-a-Lago where he lives like all day, just like mean stuff to him.
Wow. Well, with that, give us a little forecast. What's going on?
I'll give you your little oh my god, I got 2 job offers to write horoscopes. I have 2 monthly columns now.
Holy shit! Congratulations. For where?
I'm not going to give the names yet because I'm waiting for the second contract to be sent over. Like everything's set, everything's good.
Gosh, that's great.
But I'm going to be published in March, and next week after contracts are signed, I'll say like where it is. But so like I've only been ghostwriting lately, like up until this point, all my horoscopes, and like there have been times where I had to have someone cover my shift because I was like, I'm sorry, like I'm fucking slammed with this deadline. You've sort of seen it eat my life. But it's all been ghostwriting, and so now like I get to say by Renee Watt, like your full moon horoscopes. I'm doing full moon horoscopes for one website for every sign, and I'm doing monthly horoscopes for another website for every sign. And I
amazing.
Literally doubled my income in one day. I got both offers. Literally doubled my income.
Congratulations. Well deserved.
Thank you. Very excited. So
with that, give us our free horoscope.
Yes, I'm going to give you your yeah. I guess it's not completely free yet. You are paying me with your time and your attention, which is time's more valuable than money in a lot of ways. So tomorrow we do have a full moon. It's, happening. Some people are celebrating the full moon tonight just because that full moon is happening sort of like in the mid morning, early afternoon sort of time frame. But it is in Leo. And so whenever we're looking at the full moon in Leo, we do have sort of like themes around ego and confidence, but also creative expression. One thing that we've got going on in the cosmos is we've got a T-square. And what a T-square is it's basically like it's a very frustrated aspect because we have, the sun and the moon. We've got the sun over here on one end, and then we've got the moon over here on the other end of the cosmos. So they're facing each other off. We know that's how full moons are made because even in science, the full moon is when it's across from the sun in the sky. And so we've got, this 180-degree angle. It's called an opposition. It's usually kind of difficult on its own. It's usually kind of tense. Then at 90 degrees here, we've got Mars and Uranus hanging out. And it's called the T-square because we've got Mars and Uranus is forming a square to the sun, and Mars and Uranus is forming a square to the moon. So the sun and the moon are having their own sort of little kind of tension or conflict. And then we've got Mars and Uranus that are adding, like, they're just sort of like shit talking more, and so there's a lot of frustration in the sky. There aren't great aspects for this moon. It can be kind of dramatic. Now, because we have Mars squaring off during this full moon, there may be, Mars is a planet of aggression. And when it's not making, Mars at its best is passion and sex and drive. And like, I'm going to fucking do this thing because I feel really passionate about it. At its worst, it's like, I'm going to fuck you up because I can't handle my aggression. And I'm like super aggro. So Mars is a little bit irritated right now. And it's, paired up with Uranus in the sky. So we might see people just sort of like kind of like moodiness, basically, like flipping on a dime with their emotions. Full moons tend to make people a little bit emotional anyway. So we've got Mars and Uranus that's just sort of adding this aggressive and this unpredictable aspect to it. This full moon is at 9 degrees, and we also have a conjunction between the sun and Jupiter. So when we're looking at a conjunction between the sun and Jupiter, a conjunction is when those planets are right next to each other. And the sun, again, is our egos, and it's sort of like our vitality and our identities. And Jupiter makes things bigger, it makes them expand. So, this conjunction on its own, it's really good because it's sort of like we're excited to put our work out there. We're feeling good about ourselves. We're feeling optimistic about ourselves. But on another hand, this could create inflated egos. And there could be sort of like people running around with inflated egos, pissing off other people. So it's just sort of like a high tension sort of full moon. On top of that, we have Venus has lined up with Pluto. And Venus is, in a lot of ways, the planet of love and relationships. And Pluto is sort of like the destroyer. Pluto wants everything to die so it could be reborn. So when we're looking at a Venus-Pluto conjunction, we're looking at either your relationship becomes renewed, you have some sort of difficulty or obstacle in your relationship and you move past it and now you're stronger and you have a better understanding. And worst case scenario, I'm calling this a breakup full moon because egos are inflated, aggression is sort of, on the table. And then we've got Pluto and Venus lined up. That's sort of wanting to kill off some of the romantic stuff that's happening right now.
So let me interject. So how is this going to attack the political system that's going on that's all new right now?
Well, I think that, we do have some healing that can come with Venus and Pluto, because Venus can be a lot of self-love and it can be sort of about like shedding pain. I think that, one of the hangups for us is that we have this T-square happening, and that's where I'm seeing more of the political stuff happen, because that feels a little bit more like a Uranus thing, because Uranus is wanting us to evolve and change and move forward. And that feels more like, I think people are really frustrated that now we're learning that a lot of Republicans who said that they would vote to impeach Trump are now backpedaling. And so I think that like we are sort of having to resolve what our personal issues and personal feelings around that are. A Pluto-Venus conjunction can actually be really wonderful. It's a really good time to sort of like release pain from the past. So, I know that we asked about politics, but I'm kind of going to tie relationships into this as well, that if like you have had struggles within your relationship up to this point, this is a good time to sort of like clean the slate and just decide like, this thing sucked and we went through it and now we're going to move forward. Or like we had this argument, but now we're going to resolve it. We're going to decide not to bring up that thing anymore and we're going to move forward. So it can be a really beautiful renewing type of energy. It just depends on, how you work it and how it hits your chart as well. Any planet that you have that is within 5 degrees of 9 degrees, because that's where this full moon is happening. Any planets that you have within, I guess that would be 4 and 14 degrees is going to be a direct hit to your chart. You'll also want to look at which house in your chart is ruled by Leo. For all of you people who do work with your natal charts and want to understand it more thoroughly, you'll want to look at, which house in your chart is ruled by Leo, and that will sort of give you more of an indication of what aspect of your life is being affected. But when it comes to this Pluto and Venus conjunction, that's at 25 degrees. So I would say, anything from 20 degrees Capricorn to 29 degrees. I don't really like to have the energy carry over when we switch signs. So that's sort of what's going on with the full moon. I will say that we do have Mercury going retrograde on the 30th as well. And this Mercury is going retrograde in Aquarius. So I think we probably will see more fanaticism coming out, on a political level, which I know is sort of what you were asking about. I think that when we have a retrograde, it's sort of like, the past, or like what the things that we think were over can sort of like come back to make us deal with them and sort them out. And I don't know if you read this or not, but there is basically they issued a domestic terrorism warning. Like they issued like a bulletin, the government did. I don't remember exactly what program it was because I read the article earlier and I didn't retain all of the information in terms of like what the system that they used was called. But basically like a bulletin against domestic terrorism was issued because they were worried about Trump extremists doing something in the next couple of weeks. So the government is even sort of like, hey, look out, like we might see some extremism coming up. And I think that that could probably coincide with Mercury retrograde.
Gotcha. That's intense.
Yeah, it's kind of an intense year just because we have, I actually talked to this really brilliant astrologer the other day. I'm going to be releasing an episode with him for the Glittercast, but he was so fucking good, Sal, that like I want him to come on our show. He's just like this, started doing astrology. He's like an old timer, and he's like a quantum astrologer. He was talking about quantum physics and its relation to astrology. And he was like making all of these really crazy, brilliant, wonderful, insightful observations. And one of the things that he was talking about is that we do have sort of like, Saturn, which is, is the planet of restriction. It's the planet of authority. It's the planet of, what keeps our society moving. It's forming a square, which again is a difficult aspect to Uranus, which wants things to evolve, and it wants things to evolve quickly, and it wants there to be a resolution to a problem immediately. And so we have Saturn sort of being like, no, we're not doing this. And Uranus like, yeah, we're fucking moving forward. And they're just sort of like butting heads. And so, we're going to have a lot of start and stop this year. And we're going to have a lot of conflict, I think, coming through because of that.
Wow. That was pretty intense. Right on. That was a good one this week.
Yeah, there was a lot to work with. So it was nice. Yeah.
For sure. So you want to go in and start hitting some questions out? Because I know we've got some stacked up, and then maybe we can talk about some other stuff after that.
Yeah, even if we have time, because we already have 7 questions, and I'm sure you guys are going to start bringing them in. We welcome your questions. We always do. So we have actually a couple of questions that were thrown into the ring by one person. His name's Jeremy. And so I figured I'd just go down and sort of read all of those out. He sent 3 questions, and I'll do them one by one. What makes you prefer cedar over sage for cleansing a home? You both seemed very adamant about this.
Sage for me, first of all, sage has just been really, forced down people's throats for so long now. It's just getting to be a bit ridiculous. I think sage itself is a wonderful herb. I mean, I use it in some Hecate blends that I make, but, it's also absolutely just balls to the wall, bleach out work. When you break out sage, it's just absolute. I think cedar has more of a calmative effect, almost like the Palo Santo does, and the aromaticness of the cedar even makes it lighter to deal with. And I just think it's just a little bit more easier on the magical palette, where sage is just absolutely aggressive and martial.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think it's a time or place thing with sage.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely usually, if I was going to advise someone, I would say only use sage if you very first, move into a place, or if there's a really bad breakup and you don't even want the good memories of that relationship to linger. I will sage my house maybe every year or two, just because
that makes sense.
I kind of like starting with a clean slate, and maybe it's because I'm a Scorpio. And I every once in a while, I just want that entire destruction, and I want that completely, fresh palette to work with. But if I'm just, or if I'm like cleansing a new magical object, I'll use sage and just sort of like spot clean. I won't go through the whole house, but if there's someone that I've had in my house that spent a lot of time in my house that I just don't want in my energy anymore at all, I staged my house earlier in the summer because there was someone I just wanted completely out of the house, and not romantic, but someone I want their energy out of the house. And I'll do that if there's someone I just don't want any memories of that person. I just sage it. So it just depends on, I think it just depends on personal taste at that point. But I agree with you, Sal, that usually I'll use cedar or juniper if I don't want to go with sage, because it's smoother.
Yeah, it's just a smoother environment, and it's just nicer to me. And sage is don't think I don't ever use it, because I totally use it, but it's not always, sometimes I use it in blends with other things when I want a specific intention to come from it, because it isn't just martial, it's also Venusian. It has dual planets, but it's just such an aggressive act. It's just it's cut and dry. And I think that sometimes people, when they do that too much, it can really just wipe you out. That's why I just try to have people be careful with it.
All right, so bonus question for me: did you do anything special on Bowie's birthday? I poured him a drink on his shrine. Every day is David Bowie's birthday in this house. But I lit a little birthday candle, I poured him a drink, and I just had him, I feel like, more in my consciousness and more in my thoughts, but I didn't feel like I had to go into a ritual for it or anything like that.
So who can answer this, here's a little question to ask people, get them thinking without looking on the internet. What Bowie album just had its 45th anniversary last week? Come on, Bowie fans.
I don't have that.
Station to Station, 1970.
I was thinking Stations to Stations. I couldn't say it.
That's my favorite Bowie album, and actually it just got reproduced on red vinyl.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm a huge Station to Station fan. It's my favorite one. But yeah, it was 45 last week.
Okay, are you ready for the next question?
Sure.
I know we have a slew of questions coming. I told you when you were like, what are we going to talk about today? I was like, it's going to be all questions. I know it's going to be all questions. Okay. Can you talk a little bit about disposing of materials used in ritual?
Say that one more time.
Can you talk a little bit about disposing of materials used in a ritual?
Sure. From my perspective, like working with the kate, one of the things that I do very often, and a lot of at least Hecatean witches do, is all the stuff that's melted in the bottom of the candle holder, all the leftover herbs, all the ash from the incense, that all is an offering to her. I put it together into one pot, and then I give it up as an offering to her. So I use it. I basically use it again.
I have a little clay black jar that I put all my, all my stuff in, all my wax strippings, all my whatever incense didn't burn, and I leave it in there until it fills up, and then I'll bury it somewhere.
Yeah, I use it. I use it regularly because that's just one of the things that she asks for.
I thought about saving stuff for her. I don't work with her to the extent that you do, but I will leave her offerings here and there. I'm like a dabbler compared to you. You know what I mean? So
at this point, it's just that's my religion. It's it's that old timey religion.
Yeah, I'm non-committal with my duties. I like to sleep around.
I've never had any deity besides her. I don't really know what that's like.
I've only really ever worked with Pan other than her. And Pan, I feel pretty connected to Pan.
Yeah, Pan's pretty awesome. So is Hermes.
I feel like Pan is my full moon deity and Hecate is my new moon deity.
That's cool. That's kind of cool. What was the other question that he had?
We already got through all of the other questions from Jeremy, but this does sort of lead into the next question where we were. This is, I don't know who wrote this. I left out their name. Do you keep offerings on your altar or do you leave them at the crossroads? If you leave them on your altar, what do you do with them when you are done with the spell?
Well, like I said, I use I pull things together and use those as offerings. But when the offerings go, some things will go bad quick, and I can't quite make it to the crossroads that we usually go with or go to. So if that's the case, like on my Deipnon, I'll take the eggs to my local park, and I will leave them inside a hollow of an old tree trunk every morning after every Deipnon. And that's, things like that, perishables, I leave up there pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with wine. I'll pour it into a Tupperware and then bring it up and dump it off. I try to give it back. A lot of times when we're at the store and we're doing rituals here, we always leave offerings to the tree out in front of the store.
Yeah. If you come to the store, you're like, why the fuck are all these eggs out here? It's because
it's because I was doing Deipnon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm. Or wine, or Scarlett one time left chicken hearts. Sorry about that, John.
Yeah, and then the rest of them ended up in the fridge. And for like 2 weeks, we were like, why does it smell weird up here? Why does it smell weird up here? And then I went to put something in the mini fridge and we got blasted with the smell of old chicken hearts. And I was like, God damn it smells like shit up here. And
Scarlett did that and then left. It was so fucked up.
Yeah. It shows how often that fridge gets used. It's just to store chicken hearts that we forget about.
Yeah, for sure. But so that's what I do with them. I definitely, I'll look at what is perishable, and then I will dispose of them appropriately. Mm-hmm. I just dropped some selenite. Yeah. So where are we next?
Hello, Renee and Sal. Hope you're doing well. Questions for the show. Ever since I read Peter Gray's Apocalyptic Witchcraft, I've been thinking about how it's important to me to give back to the planet using magic and witchcraft. What are your thoughts on this type of work? If you were going by to perform a ritual to heal the earth, what would you do? I've actually led a group ritual when we had the fires in Australia, when Australia was basically completely on fire. I led a group ritual it's actually a comedy show that's called Full Moon Comedy. And they have a comedy show, but in the middle is the halftime show. They have a witch or a psychic or whatever come up. And so they asked me to be the halftime show thing. And so because we had all of these fires going on in Australia, and I say I did a group ritual. I use that term loosely because I had 10 minutes and it was people who weren't expecting to do witchcraft. You know what I mean? So it's sort of give or take what you want within the situation. It is what it was. But I took some water and I took some cinnamon, and I basically, the cinnamon was supposed to be a representation of the fire. And then the water was supposed to be sort of a representation of our emotions. And so I had basically everyone channel their emotions, channel their sorrow into the water and sort of visualize rain coming over to the fire. And then to siphon the energy of the fire, I had everyone sort of take a pinch of the cinnamon and sprinkle it over their heads and sort of imagine them taking a piece of the energy that the fire is generating for their own will, for their own sort of creative spark, or whatever the fire meant to them. I kind of gave them a list of you can use it for your creativity, your passion, your drive. These are these are the, you know, what fire creates in us, this is what it represents. And so I basically had us do a meditation where everyone tried to take away energy from the fire and give their sorrow and pain to energize rain clouds to bring rain to Australia. And then I took the water that everyone sort of directed their sadness to, and I lit a candle that was supposed to be a representation of the situation of the fires. And I put that water in a bowl and I put the candle in the middle of the bowl so that when it burnt out, it was the water that extinguished the flame and didn't burn down all the way. So that's an example that I can give where I've sort of tried to use magic to give back to the earth.
Wow, that's a really good. I mean, that is a way much more thorough answer than I would give, for sure. And that was beautiful. That's really good witchcraft.
Yeah.
For me, I think trying to do stuff that is, you know, healing back the earth, and, you know, bringing back that which has been depleted. I've done in the past things with like with my other covens and back in my earlier days, where we plant stuff. We'd actually go to places where we do a tree line and plant things in and just trying to harvest the goodness. You know, I remember doing a lot of work like that up in Witch's Wood, which is up in up here in like going up the 101. It's where the old Ren Fair site is. It's called Paramount Ranch, where they used to film this show called Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman back in the day. And so anyways, that's where they film. That place is where my old coven members used to meet. And so we would do like a mile walk of silence to the hill that we would do our work on. And when we do that, we would literally, you know, our high priest of that group is very druid based in a modern sense of the word. And we just, you know, invoked silence and just harmony to try to bring health back to the earth as we walked it. So that's kind of the way we did it, you know. And of course, on the certain holidays like the Beltane, you know, when I remember, I mean, this is going back some years, but we would create a Shillinagig, which is basically a hole in the earth, which is basically the womb of the earth, and we would erect the maypole in the Shillinagig. And what we'd do is we'd fill it with corn to symbolically impregnate the earth to bring fertility back to the world. Yeah.
That is cool.
So that's definitely what I did. Huh?
I also think that it's just important to be mindful of how, you know, how you live your life. You know, if you have a dog, get biodegradable shit bags. You know what I mean? Like little things like that can sort of lower your waste. You know, do you drink LaCroix all the time? Get a Soda Stream. Don't be going through cans and cans and cans and cans and cans. So I think there's like, you know, there's magic you can use, but there's also, you know, trying to bring a little bit of mindfulness into what your
mindfulness. See, like the other day, I mean, like this is a typical, like when I think of like mindfulness that I don't even think about, is I know this sounds really lame and simple, but the other day I was walking up my pathway to the house and there was a bee that was really slow and walking and it wasn't flying, and I picked it up and put it on a flower.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it sounds lame, but
they're endangered. you
know, I did it because it just he needed help. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things. You know, it's ritual it's things every day that we need to do.
Yeah.
And I think that could be a focus. Good question, though.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, you could also donate a specific amount of money to an environmental cause and use it as your offering. You know, we've talked about that before, offerings and sacrifices.
That's like sacrifices. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. I think charitable offerings are some of the best offerings you can do because it's just like, oh yeah, like
that's
this is the last question we had that was pre-sent. How important is it to charge your crystals under the full moon?
That's all you.
I mean, I think it depends on what your relationship to the crystal is. I like to charge mine under the full moon. I don't necessarily do my personal crystals every full moon. I'm always charging the crystals that I use in my products online because it's part of, you know, it's part of what you're buying is I charge my crystals and I bless them and I you know, put good stuff into them. But I think it just depends on your relationship to your crystals. I do think that, like, you know, if I feel like a crystal isn't working for me the same way that it normally is, I try to charge it just to give it, it's like, I feel like it's feeding it. But again, I think it just depends on your own personal relationship. I, a lot of times will just open my window, like open my shades. My shades are pretty much always open anyway, though, just because I like the sun and the moon to
In your
be
bedroom?
in my office.
Oh,
Yeah, I
totally
like,
kidding.
no, in my office. It's kind of like my room. It's my sacred, it's my space, you know. But I always have the blinds open just because I like that my office and the place where I do magic is getting sunlight and getting moonlight every day. So if you don't, you know, don't necessarily have the ability to leave your crystals out, I think it's okay to put them on a windowsill as well. But again, if you don't think that you want to charge your crystals and you don't feel like it's necessary to you, then don't. It just
I
depends.
charge any of my working stones. I have a really large bowl, and I have an effigy of Hecate, and she sits in the center of it, and I fill it with that, and she charges them for me.
Nice. Yeah.
That's just how I do it.
Some people just get selenite bowls as well, which selenite is sort of supposed to be like, I mean, selenite's supposed to be like kind of like the moon in a crystal. So some people just keep their stones in a selenite bowl and they let it be cleansed and charged that way just by keeping them in there.
Which is kind of funny because in some ways selenite is the antithesis of the moon, because the moon represents the element of water, and selenite you can't put in water because it will dissipate.
That is kind of funny. That's
kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely just put them around the Hecate statue. What are the next ones?
We're going live now. We're going to the live questions.
All right.
I think we have a pretty good amount. We have a question. Can you discuss major aspects in a natal chart?
That's all you. Step back on this.
So there's, like, do I have a chart? Hold on. I must have a chart somewhere around here. Hold on. Let me grab one. Okay.
Meanwhile, I'll give you some entertainment. Da, 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 da. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, guys, because I was in such a weird mood. I didn't shave today. I'm in guy mode.
That's okay. I don't think anyone.
I feel really weird that I'm kind of like grubby looking, but my hair is all flat and not bouncy, and I'm kind of facial haired. So sorry.
They're here for the knowledge.
Yeah.
They're here for the knowledge. Okay, so when we're looking at a circle chart, we'll have all of these sort of little lines that are connecting different planets. We've got, you know, anytime you see a red line, this is going to be sort of like a difficult aspect. So we have squares and we have oppositions. Oppositions are going to be when it's sort of like a full moon. When a planet or a luminary is the center of the moon, are directly facing off each other in the cosmos. And that's 180 degrees or within 5 degrees of either direction. That's called an orb. It's a unit of measurement. And so like an example of this is like Jupiter is at 25 degrees here and the sun is at 28 degrees here. So that's within orb because that's within 3 degrees of 180 degrees of each other. And in opposition, you know, it's sort of like these two planets are facing off at each other. So they're like, it's almost like they're getting ready to fight. You know what I mean? Like there's no, you are being confronted with this situation. Your energy is not able to pass through freely because there's something standing right in front of you that you have to deal with it before you can, you know, continue on your path. So if you're, you know, if you're Jupiter over here and you're trying to move forward and the sun's right here blocking your path, that's where your challenge is. And so when we have, you know, when we have sort of like the sun and Jupiter here in opposition to each other, that could be this person has issues with an inflated ego, or this person is pessimistic because the sun a lot of the times rules the ego and Jupiter makes things bigger. And since they're, you know, they're not working together, they're working against each other, they sort of create this little bit of an explosion when they meet up. That's, you know, that's wherein lies the challenge. Now, there's a lot of different things that go into understanding these aspects, and literally I could do an entire hour just talking about that, and we're not going to go there right now. We're not going to get that in depth. That's an example of how those aspects work. We have squares, which are 90 degrees, and those are, again, a challenge because it's sort of like you've got an energy trying to go this way, and then you've got an energy trying to go this way and they square off. And again, so it's a challenge. And it's, for me, I sort of feel like there's a challenge, and you either step up to it and you deal with it, or you try to skirt around it, but it's going to come back and find you again anyway. So a square is just a little bit of a difficulty. Sextiles are nicer. They're 60 degrees of one another. And it's basically just sort of like they're helping each other. It's a light aspect. It's a supportive aspect. And then we also have trines. Let's see. And those are 120 degrees, I believe. I'm feeling bad. They're 120 degrees. I'm like 80% positive. But a trine, again, is going to be helpful. It's very similar to a sextile. Sometimes if you see, like when you see grand trines, that's very nice, especially because you have a trine in your chart, right? Because you're rising.
Yeah, about Earth, yeah.
And so a trine is going to be nice because we're working within the same element, and so we're going to get along in that way. Mm-hmm. And then if we're looking at quincunxes, that's another aspect that I use. That's going to be 150, and it's awkward, and it's just like a level of disharmony. And so, you can kind of, if you look in your chart and you're seeing a blue line, or you're seeing a nice term like sextile or trine, it's helpful. If you're getting more of a harsh word or a red line and you're hearing opposition or square, there's difficulty there. There's conflict there. The energy doesn't flow easily. One major aspect that I always look out for is conjunctions. It's when a planet is within 5 degrees in the same sign, like within 5 degrees of each other, right on top of each other. If we're looking at a new moon, that's an exact conjunction because the moon aligns with the sun. And those are when two planets are really just going to amp each other up, sort of egg each other on, give each other more energy. And so it's like these two planets are coming together to make like almost like a super, just sort of like jam-packed with energy. And so it's a little bit of a power point in your chart if you happen to have that in your chart. Sometimes if you have a planet going super close to the sun, it can get a little bit trickier, but I feel like, that's sort of in a nutshell, those are what the aspects look like. Wow. And the degree, I always keep it within 5 degrees. It depends on what kind of a chart you pull. Sometimes if you pull a chart from the internet, I've seen orbs as big as 10 degrees, and I don't like measuring my aspects that far apart. I don't see the point. So I keep it within 5 degrees, if that makes sense.
Wow. That's pretty intense, man.
Yeah.
That was some college stuff right there.
It was when I was learning astrology, I felt so overwhelmed that I would get like hot flashes because I felt like I was never going to learn. But, now I've been doing it for 4 years. So I feel like that's a bachelor's degree. And so now it's like, now it makes sense. But that's why if you are going to learn astrology, you really have to be committed and you really have to have patience with yourself. I would go to my astrology study group, and I wouldn't know what the fuck anyone was talking about, but I would still go just so I was hearing the terms and just so I was like immersing myself in it, just, and picked it up finally.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like how many degrees are the planets to Kevin Bacon?
To Kevin Bacon? Yeah. I think, is it supposed to be 6? Isn't that what it is?
Yeah. I'm being a goof.
I know.
I love your stuff, but man, that's some college stuff, man. You make my brain fry. It's like me talking about Kabbalah, but man, when you get into that, you're way ahead of my world. And I have a lot of respect for that, which is kind of cool.
This is why we're combining forces, so we can take over.
All right. So what's up now?
Let's see. This is another question for me. What space do you set up for readings? Do you cast circle, etc.? I don't cast a circle. When I'm at home, I'm in my office, which feels just like the energy here is very curated. The aesthetics are very curated to be a space that I feel comfortable in, that I feel like I can be open in. But honestly, when it comes to doing a reading, I try to make sure that I meditate. When I have people that I read for, that book in advance. This is a little bit harder to do at the shop because we have walk-ins, but when I have people that book through me online, I always have them send me a photo of themselves, and I take the photo and I sit with it for, anywhere from a half hour to 15 minutes. And I do a meditation and I put myself in their energy and I take notes. I have notebooks filled, literally notebooks filled with notes that I take on my clients before I talk to them. And I go through their chakras. I try to see, if there's any information that I can pick up about what's going on around them, what's going on with their confidence, what's going on with their mental clarity, what behavioral patterns can I pick up on? And so for me, it's not always about where I am, because when I go out of town and I travel, I'm in a space that's completely different. So it's more about taking those, that time before I read someone to just meditate and channel their energy. One thing that I used to do when I was, starting out, and, now I feel like I can pretty much take a deep breath and focus my skill set, and I can pretty much start to get information right away. But when I felt like I was still building up to that point, when I was still trying to get in my groove and strengthen my abilities, I would do this thing where I would visualize golden roots coming out of the bottom of my feet, going through the floorboards, going through the foundation of my house, going through different layers of sediment down to like the core of the earth. And then I would visualize sort of like a tree coming up, and that would be more of a silver energy going into the cosmos. And I would build this tree around me in my mind's eye, and I would build almost like an office made out of a tree. And then I would, in my mind's eye, open the door and invite the energy of the person that I was going to read in. When I'm at the shop, I just make sure that I meditate for a few minutes when I get there. Sal's seen me, I come up, okay, I'm going upstairs, I'm going to set up, I light an incense, I light some candles, I meditate for a couple of minutes, and then I'm good to go. But, I learned how to channel when I was 12, maybe younger. So, I was doing meditations that took me to the astral plane when I was very, very young, and I was doing it for fun. So I'm sort of at a place now where I can just sort of slide into, I can turn it on and off in my brain, and I think that it's more about the meditation that you do than casting a circle or setting space. I think that just knowing your energy and knowing other people's energy and knowing how to decipher the two is going to be the thing that takes you there. And that comes with meditation, daily meditation. Okay. They're like all questions for me right now. I'm so sorry, Sal.
I don't care. I'm good with it.
Okay. Renee, can you talk about empty houses in astrology? For example, if someone doesn't have planets or aspect in the 5th house, does that mean they are not creative? So the 5th house does create, it does rule creative expression and self-expression. It also can rule if you have children. I don't see it that way. I don't see it as an empty house. Sometimes I see it as the universe is just giving you free will in that area. You're just sort of having permission to kind of do, whatever it is that you want to do in those realms. Now, if we're looking, if you're feeling like your 5th house is lacking, well, that house is typically ruled by Leo. So then I would say, okay, well, do I have any planets in Leo in a different house? And that can sort of help you understand your 5th house a little bit more. Or because Leo is ruled by the sun, so that makes the sun a ruler of the 5th house. I would look at where your sun is, and that can give you a little bit more indication about, if you don't have anything in your 5th house, where can you pull energy from to sort of compensate for that? Or you could just get a reading with me, and I'll tell you all about it. All right. I think those are it for Renee questions.
I thought you said there was a lot more.
No, I said there was another. I was like, sorry.
So it gives me, I think it's good that you get to do this sometimes. It doesn't always have to be me talking and running a discussion. You have a lot to say, and a lot of people can listen and learn from you, and that's important.
It's nice to have the stage. I don't mind the stage. Okay, here we have another question. If you accidentally cut yourself, do you use your blood or flesh in spell or ritual? Would this be considered sympathetic magic? And can you even do sympathetic magic on yourself to give your spell working more oomph?
100% you could, but I'm not gonna. Every time I cut myself, I'm too paranoid about going, oh my god, this fucking hurts. Oh my god, Jesus, freaking out. I don't want to look because it's bleeding. So no, I'm not gonna do ritual then. You know, I don't like cutting myself at all. I went through an initiation rite with some certain lifestyle choices I made in the past with another person, and we were going to be bloodbound, and the concept was we were supposed to prick our fingers with the thorn of a rose, and I couldn't do it, so I kept taking the rose and scraping myself on the arm to get the blood to come up because I'm a pussy with that shit.
I don't like so finger either.
I hate that. I hate that stuff, that finger stuff. I don't know. No, I don't want to hear that. It makes me wheezy. But like, yeah, it's sympathetic for sure. But then so is spitting in a cup. You know, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't have to be blood. People are caught up on the whole blood thing because it supposedly runs our life. Well, you know what? If you had no spit in your body, you wouldn't be alive either. Yeah. You know what I mean? It all keeps us alive. So you don't have to bleed every time you want to do ritual to, you know, pull out a piece of hair, pull out, you know, anything that comes off your body, conjunctivitis. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's coming out of you. That's sympathetic. I don't mean to be gross, but it's true.
Yeah, I definitely think that if you cut yourself, you could, you know, if you wanted to grab a candle really quickly, and I've 100% done this where I cut myself and I grabbed a candle and I just sort of dressed it quickly and then put it to the side so it had my blood on it, and then I like actually dressed it with oils and later. Mm-hmm. So like I have done that. This is making me think of a story though, when we were at the old shop and you made a shit ton of dragon's blood. I came into the shop and Sal had made this huge thing of dragon's blood and it was all over his hands, and he was really quiet and he was like, hey, come here. I think I cut myself. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, I think I cut myself really bad. And I was like, oh my God, are you okay? And I went over and he was like, nah. And then he chased me around the fucking store and I was like, what is going on? And then he was like writing sigils on his, like, I was like, what is happening? And I was like, 2 months.
I have a picture of that actually.
Huh?
I have a picture of it.
Yeah, I think I have a picture of it somewhere too. But I was like 2 months into the job and I was like, okay, this is where I need to be.
It was so fun. But yeah, that was making the purge. Mm-hmm. The purge oil.
I thought
now I'm looking for the picture.
That was dragon's blood for some reason.
Well, it is. Dragon's blood is made. It's purge. Dragon's blood is the main component of purge. Mm-hmm. It was just a mixture I created, and that's kind of funny that you said that. So yeah, I just don't purposely ever cut myself, and if I do, I am freaking out about it. I am a pussy when it comes to that shit, and I just am. I don't want to see my blood. I go out of my way to make sure I never get scratched or cut or stabbed or pricked. Or this is another reason why I don't like doctors and I don't go to doctors, you know, for sure. I'm sorry, I'm digging for the picture as we talk. So I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I'm just thought you guys would like to see that. The picture is just worth 1,000 words.
That's good.
Let me see, I'm almost there.
Okay, I'll do another question while you're doing that. What does your tattoo say on your arm, Renee? It says, in the land of gods and monsters, I was an angel. Mm-hmm. The next verse is looking to get fucked hard. People always go, aw, and the next verse is looking to get fucked hard, so.
Wow. Ouch. Well, not ouch, in a good way.
Yeah.
That's funny. What is the next? Do you have another question?
As someone still in the beginning, this is from Seeker. We love Seeker.
Yeah, we love everybody, but yeah.
We love everyone. Yeah. Seeker's just been around since the beginning and has just been very interactive. The tattoo question was from Dark Muse. Thank you, Dark Muse, for asking. Okay, Seeker wants to know, as someone still in the beginning stages of learning and practicing magic, how does one decide whether to join a lodge/coven or stay a solo practitioner?
Word that one more time for me. I'm sorry, I know it was mouthy, but I want to hear it one more time.
That's okay. As someone still in the beginning stages of learning and practicing magic, how does one decide whether to join a lodge/coven or stay a solo practitioner?
There is no rush to join a coven. It's a very serious commitment. And I think it's something that you really need to think about. If you're clear of mind and you know that's your result and that's what you want, then yeah, step up to it. But step up to a reputable lodge like an OTO lodge or a Golden Dawn lodge if you like that system that they work in. But especially covens. Covens are it doesn't come easy, and any reputable coven's not just gonna let you walk in their front door. My coven was handpicked and built with a specific mindset, with specific what do they call them? What do they call when you? Oh, Grace, help me! I know you can hear me. What do they call it when it talks about what the coven stands for? Manifesto. So we built our manifesto, and within the coven, we built an elder group. And within that elder group, we have a high priestess. So you have to really, if you're walking into that, they have to accept you. So it's not gonna be that easy. So what I would say to you to start, read the fuck out of every book that you can get your hands on, and let it be a book with some serious background in it. Not some buttercup like velvet book that says I'm a natural witch or something like that. If you really want to understand coven life and work in that realm, pick up something like The Witch's Bible by Janet Stewart Farrar and understand what it means to be in a coven, and take your time, because eventually when you get in there, you have to understand that once you enter a coven, it's not just a bunch of friends doing work. There's hierarchies.
Yeah.
There's times when people need to be maybe have authority put on them by their high priestess. It's not always an easy thing, and you have to understand that if you join a coven, you have to be really, really okay with the concept of somebody being an authority above you, because any good coven has that.
Yeah.
That's what comes, and this is where some people want to stay solitary. There's nothing wrong with solitary witchcraft, but I can tell you this, being from both sides, being a solitary witch is great, but being in a coven is amazing. It's so amazing, because when you really experience the hierarchical structure and watching people come in and be birthed and baptized in the craft, it's moving, and it changes your entire life. So that's where I am with it.
Very nice. I've only ever been solitary, so I think you're probably the authority. Renee, what are your favorite beginner books on astrology and tarot? Okay, so tarot, this is the only book I ever recommend. It's amazing. The person who wrote it is a fucking badass. Modern Tarot by Michelle T. It's just the best tarot book that I think is in existence. And she even gives like little rituals for like each card, and how to work with the energy of the card if you pull it. And for astrology, this is the first astrology book I ever picked up, and it was okay. But
it's upside down.
Oh, it was okay. I don't have my copy up here, but what I tell my students to get, and a lot of my students are interested in astrology for magical uses, because one of the things that I teach my hold on, Voodoo found a crystal. I don't want her to eat it. Come here.
Voodoo's got a crystal in your buddy. Happy to see me.
She was like pawing at it, and I could just tell she was gonna swallow it any second.
She's getting big.
She is getting big. I always tell my students to get the astrology Bible, and then to get the Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs. because it'll give you a planetary reference for each herb. We've talked about it so many different times on this.
Yeah, that's my favorite book.
Yeah. So, for me, astrology, the Astrology Bible, because I think it's good to have a really easy, quick reference book to use. But it's really hard to learn astrology without some sort of teacher or mentor. It's really hard. So I think that, you might want to just consider signing up for some classes. I do teach astrology through the Haunted Diary Paranormal School. If that's something you want to look up, if you want to reach out to me with questions about it. My first season of Witch Doctorate I started Witch Doctorate, one of my other podcasts. I started it because I wanted to focus on a different sort of witchy subject. And so my first season is about astrology. I wanted to do a new subject every season. And my first season is about astrology. So if you listen to the first season of Witch Doctorate, I go through, it's basically my journey learning astrology. So I go through astrology at a very beginner level. So that might be a good tool for you to use as well. But classes, it's just really hard to avoid classes if you really want to learn.
You should never avoid classes, because that's what's really going to teach you true witchcraft as well. I mean, you need foundation. Yeah. Don't be fooled by the word eclectic. Eclectic without foundation is sloppy. To be truly eclectic, you have to have something to build off of. So what is the other?
What is your favorite way to connect with a new tarot deck? I'm addicted to collecting new decks, but I feel like my new decks don't quite connect with me like they should. So what I do is I usually will dress a purple candle, just because it's affiliated with intuition, with the system that I use. And so you can use a purple candle, a lavender candle, or, white, even if you'd like. I usually dress my candle with pine oil and maybe a little bit of lavender. And I will burn the candle with the deck next to it. And I will also take whatever oil I used. I like to take pine oil and rub it on my hands and just sort of rub it along the edges of my cards. My cards always smell delicious, like essential oils. So I anoint them like they are magical tools. I do rituals to bless them and to connect with them like they're magical tools, because to me they are. So other things that you can do is sleep with them next to your bed, sleep with them on your pillowcase. I think a card a day is good too. I tend to only buy tarot decks that I feel drawn to. So I don't have a ton. I think I've got, maybe 10 decks, but I'm not buying them up all the time. I'm just sort of buying a deck because its art appeals to me. So I think that that's an important thing to look at as well, if the art speaks to you or not.
Answer.
Let's see. Read the next question. I have to let Voodoo out. She's scratching at the door.
The next question is, wow, there's 18. Let's see.
We have 18 questions.
Oh, yeah, it looks like it. What does your tattoo say? La la la. Christy asks favorite beginner decks. Also, what is your new way to kind of Lana Del Rey lyrics? Thomas Frank Rodriguez asks, I'm reading the Psychic Bible, and Genesis talks about faith. Do you believe in faith, or do you have a different take on this belief?
Faith.
Wow. And we're not talking about the song by George Michael. We're actually talking about faith. Well, let's get a little esoteric here on what we're talking about. Like faith, usually when one has faith, Jen had faith, she was amazing. Faith is what gets you through the night. Faith is what moves you when nothing else does. Faith is the banister in the hallway of life. So when you fall, you can grab it so you don't hit the ground. Sometimes you need to hit the ground though. You need to have your faith. And I completely believe in that. Had you asked me this in the 90s, I would have probably said no. but I've grown a lot magically since then. And definitely my faith is Hecate. My faith is my religion. And I'm a very much, I was joking about it today. Give me that old time religion, because I'm at the juncture in my life where I'm a lot older than most of the people watching this show. And you want to cling to, you want to start looking at that. And at this point in my life, my faith gets me through every day.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I mean, I think that, do you have a different take on faith or belief? I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think faith is about trust in a lot of ways. And I think that, faith also,
faith, I think you're right, but I think he's talking about spiritual faith, not faith in something concrete.
No, that's what I mean. Faith in like on a spiritual level, faith, trust that the universe.
Trust.
Huh?
I think it's a difference of opinion, but I mean, it's way more than trust. It gives you life. It's what any religious person has.
Right. But I think that, like, for me, faith and trust are interconnected, because I feel like, I have faith that even though I am not necessarily seeing 100% what the path is in front of me, like, I trust that it's going to go in a way that is either beneficial or will teach me something. Does that make sense? So faith and trust to me are very much combined.
Yes, they're one in that way, for sure. But I definitely believe in having a faith in my faith. And I don't believe that everybody needs to have one. Some people can do fine without it. But for me, at this juncture in my life, it is completely there.
Yeah.
Good question.
I think it helps with optimism too. I think that having faith, and it makes you a more optimistic, chilled out person. I was an atheist for many years as well. So I think that, like,
I don't mind having faith in myself either, though, part of being on the satanic series, it's a great idea. But, this is also like, and I bring this up all the time, and sometimes I get an eye roll from people, but I mean, especially in the modern time, witchcraft is a philosophical, spiritual, theosophical, faith-based situation. But the act of witchcraft to me is completely not, unless I want it to be. It's like a math equation to me. That's why I try not to bother my goddess with things every time I do it. So any more questions?
No, I think that's it. And we're already at almost an hour and 15. So I think it's a good time to wrap. I don't think we have enough time to touch on, our topic. And yeah,
that's
for sure.
So that's the first one. This is like, Renee, I think I'm bleeding. And then I went to this. It looks like serious blood work.
I might even have a photo of you, like, of you and I too.
Yeah, it's freaked out. I mean, it gets so heavy duty.
Yeah.
And there's the Hecate.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, you wrote that.
Like, oh my God. It's freaking out. That was so funny. It looked like a murder scene. Funny times. And that was the blade.
Nice.
But it does look really bad. It really, really does. I was just like, oh, and then I ended with this. Well, that's pretty. But the denial of the Trinity. You know what I would love to talk about next time? I think we should do a really good show on the different perspectives of Satanism.
Maybe we should do more, because Valentine's Day is coming up. Maybe we should save that for after the love magic and stuff like that comes up. But I would be okay with that.
Okay. I think that'd be great. I think that to end this out before we are done for the day, I think we should remind everybody, because it is next week, that Imbolc is coming. Mm-hmm. And we were not ready for this. We actually didn't plan out what we should have. But Imbolc is coming.
We both had a week. We'll say that. But we both had what's going on.
It's been a bit intense. But this is an SBAT. It's a quarter point in between winter solstice and the Beltane. And you know, this is where you're starting to prep for your coming year of planting. And the Beltane is, you know, coming very quick. And when that comes, that's always a great time. That's a, you know, that's a major Sabbath. But we didn't have time to talk about it, but it is in our hearts. Sorry, we didn't discuss that this week. But thank you guys all for being there.
Yeah,
thank you for constantly being around, and the Shadow Crew coming through as always. Great questions tonight. Chris Hall, I want to give a special and a little extra shout out to you. Thank you for connecting, and thank you for actually buying something from the Crooked Path in the United States when you're all the way across the pond. That was really cool. You are definitely part of the Shadow Crew, and if we ever get t-shirts made, you will get one. But thank you, Renee, for great. You ran it tonight. This was the Renee show for tonight, and I have no problem with that. I think it's a really good thing that you get to speak and talk about this, and I'm so proud and happy that you have got some new things coming into your life with this.
Yes.
Really good. It's a really good time.
It's really exciting. It's just like.
Yeah.
You can find us on Instagram at Betwixt the Shadows. If you listen on iTunes, please go ahead and Scott said he loves me. I love you too. You can find us online, Instagram, Betwixt the Shadows. I'm at Rainbow Glitter Star. You're at Salvatore Modern Witch.
Yeah, it's Salvatore_modern_witch. And it's just all spellcraft and witchcraft. So I'm putting up like actual spell work that I'm doing. I'm actually thinking about running a little poll because I'm going to do, I think maybe starting next week, if everybody likes it and I get more people signed on, I'm going to do one planet every day and how to use it in ritual magic. So I'll do a little mini cast on my Instagram for it next week. Okay. So connect with me. Yeah. Salvatore_modern_witch. We are also Betwixt the Shadows on Instagram. You can find us at the Crooked Path_LA, Rainbow Glittercast as well, and Rainbow Glitter Star.
The Glittercast is back. If you listen, if you need more podcasts, please leave us reviews on iTunes as well.
Yeah, and the iTunes is going. And again, thank you so much to the Shadow Crew. Because as much as we're standing in front of this, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have it. And I believe maybe soon we will be actually back live in studio.
Yes. Yeah.
Which will be a great thing.
Yeah, we're some bands lifted in LA, so we're just checking in on everyone's comfort level, and hopefully we'll be able to safely do production in person again.
That's right. And I think we're going to expand our production facilities a little bit too. So that will be fun. But thank you guys so much. I am Sal. You got Renee.